Hello, thank you for coming back and watching the second video in my series of stories and testimonies that I'm putting together to show God's incredible mercy and love and grace in my life as I've walked through a very long and at times very dark journey through mental health. Um, I picked this area because the story I'm about to tell is it's dark, it's uncomfortable, uh, it's really unpleasant, and this kind of fits that vibe. Kind of look like I got a prison going on behind me and down in my basement because I was in the prison of my mind through the story I'm about to tell you. And as I look back, I realize that this was the first instance of trauma in my life that began to create that PTSD diagnosis that I was eventually given. This was probably the first instance of that happening and that developing in my life. My family, we moved to New Jersey when I was about 9 years old. We left New York, left friends and family and everything else. There's just a lot of big opportunities for us, so we decided to pack up and go. My parents put me into a public school for third grade. But I wasn't doing real well. I was used to a Christian school. I used to a public school. It's two different things and two different environments. I was not fitting in real well. So my parents decided that they needed to pull me out and enroll me in the Christian day school that was part of the church we were going to at that time. So I was very happy about that, because my friends were there, friends I had at church. So that was awesome. But the thing is, as some of you who've grown up in a church environment know that, sometimes there's bad influences there too. You just can't get away from them. And in Sunday school, there was an older kid. He didn't go to school with me, but he was in Sunday school, who taught me about sex. I was 9 years old during Sunday school. My teacher found out about this and told my parents. Obviously, my parents were frustrated by it, being forced to have to tell their 9-year-old boy about sex way too early. But it had to be done. So there's the first thing that happened, the first thing that affected me and changed me way too early in life. The next thing that happened shouldn't happen to anybody. My best friend at the time, at school, church, everything, I used to spend the night at his house quite regularly. He spent the night at my house, spent the night at his house. It was amazing. It was fun. I don't exactly remember when this happened, this 10-year-old, but he began to molest me on a regular basis, pretty much every time I spent the night at his house. Why his parents didn't know what was going on, I don't know. I never told my parents because it was absolutely embarrassing and I felt ashamed and I was getting in trouble, but I just kept it to myself. And this kid had such an incredible stranglehold over me mentally that I was just terrified of him, so I let him do whatever he wanted to me. The problem is, this kid at school wasn't the only one doing this to me. There was another 10-year-old in the neighborhood where I was living. He became a real problem. His foolish father, he left his porno books on the bookshelf in the family room low enough for children to not only see them, but grab them and say, well, what is this? This is interesting. This kid introduced me to these books, okay? It didn't take long for him to start molesting me too. So I have a kid molesting me in my neighborhood, I have a kid molesting me at school. I couldn't get away from it. It absolutely was dominating my whole life. The neighborhood kid threatened me and told me that if I ever told anybody or if I stopped him from doing what he wanted to do to me, if I ever stood up to him, he would tell every kid in the neighborhood that I was gay and that they needed to stay away from me. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, so I continued to let him do whatever he wanted to me. However, this went on for not about a year, a little less, and God, all praise to God and glory to God, that He empowered me to stand up to this kid and say, no, you're done. You're not doing this to me anymore. And I did. He stopped. I still didn't tell my parents, though. This was still, I was carrying this in myself. Um, when I told this kid to never touch me again and I wouldn't be hanging out with him anymore, unsurprisingly, like most abusers, he slunk back into the shadows and didn't do anything about it because, that's how abusers are. But the kid at school was a whole different kind of evil. I remember, I'll never forget this. It was after church and we were goofing around, wandering through the church building, and we went to a Sunday school room. It was about Easter time. And someone had taken construction paper and created a crucifixion scene on the wall. And so Jesus was up on the wall on the cross. This kid, he goes up to Jesus, the construction paper Jesus, and pretends to pull down his loincloth and say, "Whoo-hoo, whoops, oh, there's your pee-pee." I'm like, dude, that's Jesus. What are you doing? Why are you doing that to him? And he's like, oh, I didn't know this was Jesus. And let me fix this for you, Jesus. Here, I'll pull up a little bit higher for you, pretending to put the loincloth back up. I mean, that is messed up. Like, who else would that be? Who else would the church put up on the wall that wasn't Jesus crucified? Well, when I finally did stand up to him as well, he didn't back down. He continued to do whatever he wanted to me, but I was just powerless to stop him. Eventually, I said, well, I can't do this on my own, so I've told my parents. Obviously, me going over to this kid's house, me ever talking to him, seeing him outside of school or church, that was stopped immediately. But, however, this kid, he destroyed me both at school and church. So he may not be doing anything physically to me, but he was doing something mentally to me. He told all my friends to never talk to me again, to ignore me, to stay away from me, because I was not worth talking to. Like cowed little slaves, they all listened to him. I don't think he was doing anything to any of them, but for some reason, this kid just had a mental control over everybody. Well, so my parents decided enough was enough. New Jersey definitely was not what they had hoped it would be when we moved out there for what was happening to me and other job-related stuff. So they decided we need to get back to New York, get back to family and our church and everything else quickly as possible. So things got lined up, and we were finally about to move, and we'll be moving during Christmas break. So I'm at school, and it's the Christmas party, so it's a half day. And like everything else, the kids are ignoring me, not talking to me, as they do it every day. So I ate my food and was trying to leave, and no one said goodbye to me. They all knew I was leaving. Nobody said goodbye to me. They just let me walk out by myself. So I go outside, and my mother's in the parking lot waiting for me. And I noticed that it was snowing. It was just this beautiful, peaceful, vivid, just snowfall. And, I was intrigued by it. I'm a little kid. I'm not trying to make this into too deep, but I just remember how beautiful it was. I'm walking across the parking lot. I hear somebody behind me yelling, Jeremy, wait, hold up, wait. I turned to see a classmate in my class coming to me, running towards me. This kid is the son of a New York Giants defensive back. So he's a very large third grader, okay? So he runs up to me and stops, and he just starts apologizing to me. He's telling me, I'm so sorry for what this kid made us do to you. He's like, I never wanted to ignore you, but I didn't want to get on this kid's bad side, so I just let him do it. I'm thinking now, not then. I'm like, you're this large, really big boy, but you're allowing yourself to be controlled by this pathetic, puny little Charles Manson type third grader. Whatever, that's your choice, man. I thanked him. I said okay, and said goodbye. Back in New York now. Back to what we all know, and friends and family and everything else. Back in the church, back in the school, and things were. I was so happy. I was so relieved to be back home with people that I knew. But the problem is, I developed this uncontrollable fear of throwing up. I believe it's called emetophobia. most likely saying that wrong, but basically it's just this, panic about, phobia of throwing up. I developed that probably not even a month after we moved back. It happened pretty quick. I was just so worried about throwing up at school and throw up in front of all my friends. I was afraid that they were going to be like, ew, he's the kid who barfs. We'll hang out with him. So afraid I was going to lose all my friends again because it was so traumatizing to me that all my friends abandoned me back in New Jersey. I didn't want to ever go through that again. That fear stayed with me through pretty much all through high school. There's no absolutely. I was dominated by this fear, and it followed me into college, and it stayed with me for a long time. Interestingly, I didn't really get over it until about my mid-20s. At the same time, the memory of what I just told you of New Jersey came back. Somehow I repressed that entire episode. I knew it was in New Jersey, but I didn't know what was happening to me. I don't remember that story about my friend coming out and apologizing to me in the snow, all those things. I completely repressed it. But it all came back to me in my mid-20s. And it started to, which I'm getting ahead of myself, but at that point, things were starting to click in my brain what was going on, why, what was happening with me mentally and everything else. And that was a big contributing factor. So, I forgive this kid. It's fine. I'm so over it. I don't want to be controlled by unforgiveness because that just means this kid's still controlling me, right? This kid in the neighborhood kid. But I moved on. I didn't allow it to happen anymore. The lack of forgiveness to control me. But also more than that, God healed me. As Jesus can do. He can heal all your wounds. But the thing is, with wounds, there's always scars. But the really amazing thing about scars is that they usually have excellent stories to go with them. And those stories can be used to encourage others, to let them know that you're not alone in your own private misery that you're going through. And this is what I'm encouraging you with, that I allowed God to heal me. I let him come in and heal me of my sadness and the damage that was done to me mentally. And he can do that for you too. If you just let him. You let Jesus heal those scars. For those of you who are suffering with the same kind of thing, don't hide it. Don't suffer alone. Reach out to people that you trust and that love you. And get the help you need. Don't let it dominate your life. If you have a story and if you want to tell it, if you want me or others who are watching these videos to pray for you, put comments in there. Let the community come in and encourage you. Don't suffer alone. Above all else, as I have done, I encourage you to look to Jesus because he can heal. All right, my friends, I will talk to you again when I tell my next story, so please watch it. And until then, keep pressing on.